Sonic 3's commercials included a quick glimpse of Sonic snowboarding down an ice-capped mountain. This was discussed on playgrounds at recess in the weeks that followed. And when we finally got there, there wasn't even a lead melody to distract Sonic from taking on yet another extreme sport. Instead, we absorbed glacial chords, a fleet of massive tones expressed in a four-voice symphony. Radiohead took a similar approach in the song Idioteque, using despondent chords that snowball the panic of a frozen wasteland. Icecap's chord progressions include a variation of the Andalusian cadence, a sequence derived from flamenco music prevalent in the Andalusia region of Spain. It's a straightforward walk-down of 1-7-6-5, which fits within the snowboarding theme of a descending slope. These chords have a haunting beauty that captivates on flamenco guitar. Early theories suspected Icecap was a Michael Jackson track due to the Andalusian overlap with the chords in Smooth Criminal and a similar bass structure to boot. Icecap takes the major 5 and makes it minor, but it still generates this Andalusian descent. In order to build these chords, Sega had to work within the technical limitations of the Genesis hardware. Each instrument channel can only produce one note at a time, so building a 3-note chord requires 3 separate channels of that same instrument. Metaphorically, it's like you have to hire 3 separate musicians on keyboard, and each of them can only play one note at a time. If we focus on the tones in the upper register, the identifiable chord roots are mostly a back and forth 1 to 7. It's only when we bring in the lower register that the Andalusian 6 and 5 motion becomes apparent. Theories of Jackson's involvement were fueled by the song's similarities to Smooth Criminal, as well as Who Is It? And those did turn out to be red herrings, but Icecap was put together by Jackson team member Brad Buxer, who reworked an unreleased Jetsons song from 10 years prior called Hard Times. I can see you got better things to do, so just take your things and leave. Hard times, happiest days of our lives. Hard times gone by. Sandopoulos took the minor 7th and made it major, but Icecap sticks with the standard minor 7th. In turn, the 7-chord built upon it plays an important role. Compared to the thematic odyssey of a 5-to-1 conclusion, the 7-to-1 is more like you're at your next-door neighbor's house, and then you come home. Every section of Icecap ends with a 7 chord. Here's the end of section A. And in section B, the 7 chord sets up the song's loop back to the start. This 7-to-1 resolution has appeared before in Sonic 1's Labyrinth zone. The prototype track for Icecap leans on this very same 7 chord, though we call it a flat 7 now because this song's in a major key. This supporting melody takes direction from the underlying chords. The tonic version is this. Then we get the same shape, but structured on the flat 7 chord instead, right next door. This 1 to 7 chord progression repeats throughout the entire song, which seems like overkill, although this back and forth movement does speak to the bob and weave motion of downhill skiing. You could even describe this track as a full-song vamp, which is a short sequence of chords that repeats for an extended period. You often hear vamps at live concerts toward the end of the show, while each band member is introduced. They're just simple chords in order to have something on while the audience's attention is focused on each bandmate.
He's got headphones in his ears and dollar signs in his eyes. Please give it up for the reptile with style, Vector the crocodile, everybody!
Repeating the same two chords throughout an entire song can risk boring the audience. But it can be done. The Raconteurs pulled it off in their song Level.
My baby's on a level. I try to read her mind.
And it's widely recognized that Proto Ice Cap is at least partially based on the song from Game Gear Sonic 2 for Crystal Egg Zone, composed by Tomonori Sawada. Both compositions use the exact same two-chord vamp, and both have a similar 4-3-2 melody at the start of each 7 chord, each with a syncopated 4. Crystal Egg explores chords outside this vamp though, including this 1-2-3-4 walk-up from Starlight Zone, capped off by a strong finale 5 chord. That build-up has an encouraging liveliness, so it's strange that they use this track for the final zone. However, the composition does fit well within the zone's theme of ice crystals. It concurrently plays this melody with this similar one. These two melodies have a very similar overall shape, but with lots of small variations in the exact notes selected. You'd think they would clash if played at the same time, but instead it works, because the second melody is played at 2 times the speed of the first. That was a slowed down demonstration, but here's the actual speed in the game. This flurry of tiny 30-second notes shimmers like the seemingly infinite patterns to be discovered within crystallized ice. In an ice fractal, if you zoom in on a certain pattern, you find it's made up of smaller versions of that same pattern. Crystal Egg has this fractal structure on display, and even adapts it to the 2-chord vamp. Prototype Ice Cap doesn't retain this ice fractal structure, but it does have its own frantic flurry of triplet notes in the song's final moments. For a song that's fairly repetitious, this barrage of rapid notes is the only thing that signals the end of the song's loop. This common thread even extends to Genesis Ice Cap as well. These quick 16th notes might at first sound like simple octave hops, but actually what we're hearing is a 1-5-8-5 arpeggio, which is then duplicated and nudged forward, making for multiple layers of sparkly crystal ice. And the finale of Act 2 mutes all instruments, except these swirling notes of frostbite in the air. Yet many players won't often hear this, because it starts 90 seconds into the song, while it's typical to zip through Act 2 in just a minute and change. Most zone music has a runtime of 45 seconds to a minute before the loop, but Ice Cap Act 2 is the outlier, clocking in at 1:37. So it's odd that this ended up in one of the game's shortest zones. But you will always hear Ice Cap's audio samples. A commenter on Carpathia's oscilloscope video noticed how the audio samples sound like Sonic zooming by so quickly that the snow breaks a second later. This cause and effect all happens in the span of one measure on beats 1 and 4. Trapped in the avalanche, these repeating notes on the 5 pulse like a Morse code SOS, hoping someone with the right gadget picks up the signal. But there's sound wave interference in the air. The ring grab sound effect is played on the same channels as some important instruments, so when you collect rings, those instruments temporarily cut out. This is especially evident toward the end of Act 2, when the only instrument playing is that flurry of sparkly ice notes, so grabbing rings makes the music go temporarily silent. The snowboarding sequence might seem like pure spectacle where nothing you do has any real consequence, but actually the challenge of avoiding all the rings earns you the complete version of the music with no instrument interruptions. Or you can pick up 10 additional rings by jumping over the second tunnel. This brings your total to 50 by the end of the slope, a fast track to the gumball doyless at the foot of the mountain. And in 2007, Alalilia showed the world how Knuckles can indeed scale the mountain.
Slowly approach the edge of the cliff and jump. Glide into the wall to the right and climb up it. You'll now need to use the spin dash a lot. This 1-1 slope is pretty easy to climb. You'll need to be pretty skilled at the spin dash to get up this 1-2 slope.